Have you ever wondered why the bond with your children feels strained, even when you've done your best? What if some of the habits you believe are harmless are quietly pushing them away? And most importantly, how can you maintain your dignity and peace without sacrificing your family connections? Many older parents unknowingly cross invisible lines that leave their adult children feeling drained, frustrated, or even quietly resentful. It often happens so subtly that by the time we notice, the coldness in their words, the distance in their eyes, or the sighs over the phone, it has already settled in. But here's the truth. Living peacefully and happily in your later years isn't about bending over backward just to keep your family close. It's about having the wisdom to stop doing the very things that unknowingly drive them away, and the courage to set calm, respectful boundaries that protect your well-being too. In today's video, we'll explore 7 essential reminders every older parent should know. These are not tips from a parenting book, nor are they simple etiquette rules. They're unspoken truths, things your adult children likely won't tell you directly, but they feel them deeply every day. If you've ever wished to keep your family close without losing your own sense of self in the process, this video is exactly what you need. Let's dive right in with the first one, the burden of constant complaints. As we age, something happens almost without us realizing it. Our patience begins to wear thin, our daily aches and pains grow louder, and slowly, we find ourselves talking more about what's going wrong than what's going right. We might think we're just being honest, simply sharing our experiences. But for our children, especially those balancing careers, raising kids, and dealing with their own health struggles, it can feel overwhelming. Imagine facing a never-ending wave of complaints, one that pulls them under before they can even catch their breath. When every phone call or visit turns into a long list of discomforts or grievances, it doesn't just wear them down, it pushes them away, little by little. Criticisms about the world, about neighbors, about politics, or even about your children's life choices don't build closeness. In fact, they slowly erode the connection between you and your children. Here's the honest truth. Even when your children deeply love you, they can still grow weary of being around you. It's not because of who you are, but because of the emotional weight that seems to linger in your presence. No matter how old they get, children still long for warmth and comfort from their parents. They want to feel uplifted, not drained, after spending time with you. Imagine walking into a room, hoping for some peace, only to be met by a flood of complaints. The bad news about your back or knees, or how the world just seems to be falling apart. Over time, your children begin to hesitate. They still make the effort to call, but not as often. They continue to visit, but they don't stay as long. Eventually, they stop asking how you're doing, not because the Kiev have become cold or distant, but simply because they're trying to protect their own peace of mind. But this doesn't mean you have to pretend everything is perfect. You don't need to hide your struggles or force yourself to wear a fake smile when you're not feeling happy. The key lies in finding balance. Yes, share your reality, but also weave in gratitude. Talk about your pain if you need to, but don't forget to mention your hopes or joys, no matter how small. It's okay to voice your complaints sometimes, but always try to end on a note that makes your children feel like their visit brightened your day, instead of just enduring another storm. I once knew a 71-year-old man named Frank, who had a habit of starting every conversation with a deep, tired sigh. Whenever someone asked how he was, he would groan and mutter, "Still alive." Gradually, people stopped asking altogether, not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't handle the heaviness every time they reached out. After some time reflecting, Frank decided to change his approach. He began to respond differently, saying with a light chuckle, "Could be worse. At least I got to see the sunrise this morning." And something remarkable happened. His children started calling more often. A simple shift in his tone brought back the warmth that had quietly slipped away. Now let's move to the next important point, the expectation of constant attention. One of the heaviest emotional burdens many parents unknowingly carry into their later years is the belief that their children owe them constant time and attention. After everything you've done, after all the sacrifices you've made, It might feel only fair that your children check in regularly, stop by often, or immediately respond whenever you need them. But here's the hard truth. This belief, though completely understandable, can slowly and quietly poison your relationship. Relationships evolve over time, and the truth is, our children are no longer the little ones who once clung to our legs, looking up at us for guidance and help with every tiny step. They've grown into adults, facing their own complicated battles, carrying personal regrets, raising their own children, or perhaps dealing with private struggles we may never fully understand. When we begin to expect their constant presence or pressure them with guilt for not calling often enough or visiting more regularly, we unknowingly turn love into an obligation. And nothing drives people away faster than love disguised as duty and guilt. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they've stopped loving us. But life today moves faster than ever. It's busier, more exhausting, and more complicated than it seems from the outside. If every phone call or visit is met with a sigh of disappointment, phrases like, "You should have been here," or "You never call anymore," then we risk becoming another burden they dread, instead of the comfort they crave. Gradually, they begin to withdraw. They may still visit, but their hearts aren't fully present. They may still answer your calls, but with less enthusiasm. And slowly, without even realizing it, they start pulling back, physically and emotionally. I once knew a woman named Judith, a 75-year-old widow who deeply adored her daughter. But every conversation started with the same line, "So I guess you're too busy for your old mom again." Though her daughter continued visiting, something shifted. She stopped sharing her joys, stopped laughing like before, and never stayed long. Judith didn't notice the change at first, but one day she decided to try something different. When her daughter called, Judith simply greeted her with warmth. "I'm so happy you called. It always brightens my day to hear your voice." And something magical happened. Her daughter's tone softened, her visits became longer, and the laughter returned, not out of obligation, but out of genuine joy. That's the hidden truth few people talk about. Love grows best when it feels like a choice, not a chore. If we truly want our children to return, not just in body, but in heart, we must create an environment that feels welcoming. A place where they can relax and feel at ease, instead of stepping onto a stage filled with guilt and expectations. If you're still watching this video and finding these reflections helpful, please drop a comment with the number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Tap that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future videos. Your support allows us to keep bringing thoughtful content designed to inform and inspire you. Now, let's continue with the next important insight: the urge to control their decisions. As parents, we've spent decades guiding and shaping our children's paths. We spend so many years helping our children make decisions, guiding them through life, protecting them from mistakes, and steering them toward safer paths. That habit becomes deeply ingrained, and it's incredibly hard to break, especially when we see them heading toward choices we don't agree with. But one of the biggest traps many parents fall into as they grow older is the urge to maintain that same level of control. Without even realizing it, we may cross from offering support into interfering in their lives. Whether it's about their marriage, the way they run their household, their career decisions, how they raise their children, or even how often they take vacations. Many older parents slip into the pattern of giving constant advice. And then, when their words are ignored or dismissed, they feel deeply hurt. Here's the part that often stings the most. Every time we step in, even if it's out of love and with good intentions, we risk making our children feel like they're still being parented, still being judged, no matter their age. Just imagine how you would feel if someone corrected every move you made in your 70s or 80s. Wouldn't that feel frustrating? Wouldn't you want to pull away? That's exactly how they feel too. The more we try to steer their choices, the more they pull back. Not because they don't need guidance, but because they don't want the weight of judgment that often comes with it. I once knew a man named Harold who was 81 at the time. His son was going through a tough financial period. Every time they talked, Harold would fall into the same pattern, lecturing him about saving money, criticizing his career decisions, and constantly bringing up mistakes from the past. Eventually, the calls stopped altogether. Harold assumed his son was being ungrateful or irresponsible. But in reality, his son didn't feel safe anymore. He felt judged, not supported. It wasn't until Harold changed his approach that things began to shift. Instead of offering advice, he simply asked, "How are you feeling about everything?" That one question opened the door again. The conversations became easier, more open, and heartfelt. That's often all anyone really wants, especially from their parents. They want to feel understood, not corrected. They want to be seen and heard, not managed. Respect in our later years doesn't come from having the loudest voice in the room. It comes from becoming the one who listens when no one else does, from asking thoughtful questions instead of giving unsolicited orders, from standing beside our children, not towering over them. When your children sense that shift in you, when they feel your presence as a safe, supportive space, that's when the trust returns. That's when they willingly bring their worries and struggles to you again, not out of obligation, but out of genuine comfort and connection. Now let's explore the next common habit: keeping score. Keeping track of who called last, who forgot a birthday, or who didn't visit during the holidays might seem harmless or even justified at first. But this quiet scorekeeping, this mental tally of who owes what, often creates invisible walls in relationships. Nothing builds quiet resentment faster than keeping score, often without even realizing it. What starts as simple disappointment can slowly turn loving relationships into silent competitions, where both sides feel like they're losing. And sadly, it tends to push our children away exactly when we need their closeness the most. Some older parents fall into this mindset. I raised them. I sacrificed so much. The least they can do is call me more often. But that very thought, even if unspoken, can quietly seep into every interaction. Suddenly, every phone call becomes a hidden evaluation. How long they stayed on the line, whether they asked about your doctor visit, or how often they visited that month. You might find yourself thinking, that call only lasted 5 minutes, or they didn't even ask about my appointment. Before long, nothing seems good enough, and the warmth in the relationship begins to fade. The truth is, most adult children today are overwhelmed. They're juggling demanding careers, raising their own kids, managing health issues, and dealing with financial stress, all while trying to be present for you. When we start framing their love as something they owe us, as a debt they can never fully repay, we unknowingly make them feel like they're falling short, even when they're sincerely trying. I remember hearing about Carol, a 76-year-old woman who kept mental notes, and sometimes even written ones, tracking how often her daughter visited each month. She never showed that list to anyone, but she knew it by heart. Every missed visit added to her disappointment, and every short phone call seemed to confirm her fear that she was being forgotten. Eventually, her bitterness grew so strong that her daughter began pulling away, not out of neglect, but because she felt like nothing she did was ever enough. Everything changed for Carol the moment she decided to let go of those silent expectations. She stopped measuring every interaction, and instead chose to simply express her happiness. She'd answer the phone warmly, saying things like, "It's so nice to hear your voice," instead of asking, "Where have you been?" And slowly but surely, the walls between them began to crumble. Her daughter stopped avoiding the calls. Their conversations grew longer, filled with laughter and genuine connection. When we let go of scorekeeping, we create space for love to grow naturally, without guilt, without emotional debts, and without keeping track of every visit or phone call. The connection becomes real, alive in the present moment, free from pressure. If you're still watching this video and finding these reflections meaningful, please leave a comment with the number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you do. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Your support allows us to keep creating thoughtful content that both informs and inspires. Now, let's continue with another important point: the refusal to accept help. It may seem admirable to say, "I don't want to be a burden." Saying, "I don't want to be a burden," might seem like a noble act of independence, but if those words become something you say too often, if you constantly turn down your children's offers of help, you may unknowingly send a message you never intended. A message that quietly says, "I don't trust you, I don't need you, stay out of my life." At first, your children might respect your wishes, believing they're honoring your independence. But as time goes on, that invisible wall begins to build between you. They may start feeling useless around you, as if there's no room for their care in your world. And when a parent consistently pushes away offers of help, children often stop offering, not out of resentment, but because they're left feeling confused and even a little hurt. There's also something deeper here, something many seniors quietly struggle with. Some see accepting help as a sign of weakness, as if asking for a ride or seeking company at a doctor's appointment means they've somehow failed at staying independent. But true strength isn't about carrying every load alone. Real strength lies in knowing what to carry yourself and what to allow others to help with, even just for a little while. I remember Harold, a man I once knew who was 82. He had a firm belief in managing everything by himself. Whenever his son offered assistance, Harold would wave him off, saying, "You've got your own life to live. I'll manage just fine." And for a while he did. That is, until the day he slipped on his front steps while carrying groceries. Thankfully, he didn't break any bones, but his pride took a harder fall than his hip. That night, instead of asking for anything directly, Harold picked up the phone and simply called his son to talk. And in a quiet, humbling moment, he admitted, "I think I could use a hand now and then." That one small admission opened a brand new door, not just for practical help, but for emotional closeness, too. His son started visiting more often, sharing more laughter, and staying longer. Not out of duty, but out of love, because Harold finally allowed that connection. Accepting care doesn't take away your dignity, it deepens relationships. It shows your children that you trust them. And for them, it becomes an opportunity to give back. Not because they have to, but because they want to, with open hearts. Let them help. Let them feel needed. Allow them to participate in your life in real, meaningful ways. That's how relationships grow stronger and more fulfilling with every passing year. Now, let's move on to something many parents don't even notice at first: the habit of guilt tripping. One of the fastest ways to unknowingly push your children away is through guilt. And it doesn't always come in dramatic words or loud arguments. Sometimes, it's as subtle as a heavy sigh when they head out the door, a quiet, "You never call anymore," or even a joking remark that feels more like a sharp sting. "I guess I'm not that important these days." You may not intend any harm. You may simply be expressing your feelings. Sometimes, when we sigh or make those quiet remarks, we think we're just expressing how much we miss our children. Maybe we're simply feeling a bit lonely. But when guilt becomes the main way we express those feelings, whether we realize it or not, it begins to wear them down. The hard truth is that guilt doesn't pull people closer. It doesn't spark warmth or connection. Instead, it makes them pull away. It turns love into a duty, and it transforms every visit into an obligation rather than a joyful reunion. And here's something many parents forget. Most adult children are already carrying plenty of guilt on their own. They feel guilty about not visiting enough, guilty about being too busy, guilty for not doing more. Life today is demanding, and many are already stretched thin. So when we add even a little more guilt on top of what they're already carrying, whether through words, tone, or even subtle sighs, they begin to associate our presence with emotional heaviness. And no one, no matter how much they love you, wants to feel like every visit comes with a weight on their shoulders. But there's a better way to express your feelings, one that brings connection instead of distance. Rather than saying, "You never visit anymore," try saying, "It always makes my day when you come by." Instead of accusing with words like, "You don't care about me anymore," you could say, "I really miss spending time together." In both cases, you're still being honest, but in a way that invites closeness, not guilt. You're welcoming them in, not pushing them away. I once knew a woman named Doris, who was 76 at the time. She used to constantly complain to her daughter about feeling forgotten. Her daughter still visited, but she always looked tense, as though she was bracing herself for criticism. Then one day, Doris decided to change her approach. She stopped focusing on what wasn't happening and instead began expressing gratitude. Each time her daughter visited, she warmly said, "I know you're busy, and it means the world to me that you still make time for me." The shift was immediate, like flipping on a light switch. Her daughter began visiting more often, staying longer, and smiling more during their time together. Gratitude opened a door that guilt had been slowly closing. Gratitude creates space for love and connection to grow. Guilt shuts that space down, leaving everyone feeling trapped. If you're still watching this video and finding these reflections helpful, please leave a comment with the number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your support means so much and allows us to keep creating meaningful, inspiring content for you. Let's now move on to something that many parents find incredibly challenging: the refusal to respect their children's boundaries. One of the most difficult transitions that comes with aging is accepting the reality that your children no longer need your guidance in the same way they once did. They've grown, they've changed, and they've built lives of their own. Yet, out of deep love, lingering worry, or simply old habits, many parents continue to step over invisible lines, the personal boundaries that adult children quietly and naturally set. It often starts innocently, with questions that seem helpful on the surface, but feel intrusive to them. You may ask, "Why do you spend so much on that?" Or wonder aloud, "Why don't you make him wear a coat?" You might casually question, "Is your husband working late again?" To you, these questions might seem harmless, even caring, but to your adult children, they can feel like surveillance. They may come across as judgment or as subtle ways of questioning their competence. Over time, this behavior can feel like a slow erosion of their independence. Boundaries aren't meant to shut people out. In fact, they aren't walls at all. Healthy boundaries are like bridges. They allow connection, but with respect on both sides. When a parent repeatedly crosses those lines, offering advice when it wasn't asked for, inserting opinions into private matters, or demanding constant updates about every detail of their children's lives, it slowly chips away at trust. Instead of feeling supported, your children start to feel like they must defend their decisions instead of sharing them openly. The warmth and closeness you want to nurture become harder to maintain. Respecting your children's boundaries doesn't mean you need to become distant. It simply means allowing them space to live their lives as they see fit. It means holding back your advice until they invite it. It means showing that you believe in their judgment, even if you silently disagree. Sometimes the most powerful act of love is trusting them enough to let them figure things out on their own. I remember Frank, an 82-year-old father who deeply loved his daughter. He called her every single day, asking about her children's school, her husband's job, and even her finances. Over time, she began answering his calls less and less. Frank couldn't understand what went wrong. He thought he was just showing concern, staying involved. It wasn't until a close friend gently pointed it out that he realized the truth. The friend said, "Frank, you're making her feel like a teenager again, like she has to explain herself every day." Those words struck Frank deeply. He realized he had been unknowingly pushing his daughter away by making her feel like a child again. So, he decided to change. Instead of calling every day, he started reaching out just every few days. And when he did call, he always began with a simple, respectful question. "Do you have a minute to chat?" That one small shift made a remarkable difference. His daughter began calling him more often, not because she felt obligated, but because she genuinely wanted to. Being respected feels good. When your children sense that respect from you, they naturally draw closer, not out of duty, but from true desire to connect. Getting older doesn't mean fading into the background, nor does it mean desperately holding on to the past. It's about learning how to evolve within the relationships that mean the most. If you've ever found yourself wondering why the closeness between you and your children sometimes feels a bit more distant, chances are it's not because love has vanished. More often, it's because boundaries have shifted and no one quite knows how to talk about it. But now you do. These 7 gentle reminders aren't just ways to prevent resentment. They are tools, simple but powerful, to bring peace, warmth, and understanding back into your home, your conversations, and your heart. You don't need to walk on eggshells or overthink every word. You simply need to stay aware, remain open, and above all, lead with kindness. Because at the end of the day, that's what truly bridges the gap between generations and keeps families strong. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you've learned from this video and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts and experiences are very important to us, and we truly appreciate every message you share. Reading your comments brings us great joy and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue creating meaningful content to inform and inspire you. Wishing you health, happiness, and peace always, and remember to subscribe to our channel for more valuable videos.